Well, and you see, when you see people who are noble in spite of their suffering, it is ennobling, it is uplifting. Really it is. And it's been striking to me too. People want to be encouraged in that direction. I mean, part of the reason that my lectures, I would say, have been successful to the degree that they have been is because people find them encouraging. And that actually seems to work, like it seems to be positive. Because it isn't necessarily good news. Well, it seems to be. I mean, it isn't necessarily the case that would be the case, because it could have been that I would have said encouraging things to people. There's more to you than meets the eye, and you're capable of more than you're demanding of yourself. And, if you took on your responsibility and faced the things that you're trying to avoid, that your life would be richer and better and for you and for everyone around you. And the result of that could have been that thousands of people would come to me and say, I gave that a pretty good shot, and your advice is really awful, and everything is, well, seriously, like I took on that responsibility, it just bloody crushed me, and I'm way worse off than I was before, and everything's gone to hell around me, and like, thanks a lot, buddy. And that it's not like that's a completely incomprehensible possibility, but that doesn't seem to be what happens. What generally happens is that young people in particular, but not only, come to me and say, look, I've been trying to take on more responsibility and to face the things I've been avoiding, and everything is way better. It's like, okay, well, isn't that something?
Maybe onto something.
Well, then you ask yourself, well, what's the limit of that? Because that's the religious question, fundamentally, is, well, if you took on all the responsibility you could take on, and you faced everything that you needed to face, what would you be like? Who would you be? And how would the world transform around you? And well, if the partial answer is, well, if I do that a little bit, things get a fair bit better, then the next question might be, well, what if you did that completely? And I don't think that's possible in some sense, right? It's like, perfection is a horizon that always recedes, but it isn't obvious to me what the upper limit of that is. And certainly we do see people, saints, let's say.
It's a Mother Teresa, it's a Francis of Assisi.
Who kind of push the limit, and miraculous things happen around them, maybe in the literal sense, and if not in the literal sense, close enough, for all intents and purposes. And so that's heartening. I tear myself apart about this in many ways, because I think perhaps it's possible to take on too much responsibility and to crush yourself as a consequence. Maybe that's a sin of pride. Who knows? It's certainly possible. But my experience so far has been that when you see people bear their suffering nobly, there's nothing in that but good. That's something. And then when you see people take on more responsibility and decide that they're going to aim up and confront their suffering honestly and forthrightly, that their lives get better and the lives of people around them get better too. And so that's very strange as well, because it also means that the pathway to less suffering is through suffering, right? And that would be hopeful if the world was constituted that way. It's like, well, there's suffering. How do you make it worse? Run away. How do you make it better? Confront it. Yeah, but it's suffering. It's like, yeah, but it's there. There it is. It's right there. It's a precondition for existence or something like that. And it's like you have something important to do as well. And you confront it, and that's the pathway to transcending it. Anything about Auschwitz, about the Nazi death camps, about what happened in the Soviet Union, if you read that sort of thing seriously, or if you read about people who've I read a lot of books about the worst serial killers. And that's quite the competition. And to be the worst serial killer, which people do compete for, by the way, it's not like the high school shooters don't know about the reputations of all the other high school shooters. It's not like they don't try to outdo them, because they certainly do, and they do it consciously. If you read those accounts and you don't walk away with the notion that evil exists and that the notion of an adversary is like as real as it gets, then you just haven't read very carefully.
But how do your peers deal with that when you say
They don't. Psychologists generally don't. Some clinical psychologists talk about evil. But non-clinicians tend not to, and that's because they just aren't confronted by it. You are if you're a clinician. You see things in families that are so terrible that they're inexpressible, multi-generational often, and the only language that you can really fit that sort of thing in is a religious language. That's the only language that's serious enough. And, people, the idea of evil is taboo idea scientifically. It's like, have it your way. One of the things that Solzhenitsyn claimed was that the Nuremberg judgments were the most significant ethical event of the 20th century, or at least among them, because the Nuremberg judgment was that some things are wrong, right? You don't get the excuse, I was following orders. You don't get the excuse, that's how my culture looks at it. You don't get any excuses, that's what a crime against humanity is. It's like, do you believe in crimes against humanity? The answer is either yes or no, because those are the two answers. And if it's no, it's then, okay, you have the world where that's the belief and see how that goes. And I'll have the world where I think that there are things that are evil and we'll see how that goes. And because you're going to not condemn the imposition of pointless suffering on people for the sake of the suffering, that's not wrong in some fundamental and transcendental sense. I mean, you can say no, say, I don't believe in evil. It's okay, but that has its consequences. And one of the consequences is you can't condemn evil. That's a problem, or maybe not. But it's not like a world where you don't condemn evil. It isn't like there aren't consequences to that decision. And I also think that there's no good where there's no evil, right? And so if you dispense with the idea of evil, don't you simultaneously dispense with the idea of good? I mean, because if something doesn't exist, how does its opposite exist? And if evil doesn't exist, then how does good exist? Because in some sense, those two things they're integrally linked in their reality. One of them only can't exist, right? That isn't how things work. If there wasn't something that wasn't good, there couldn't be good. And maybe that's the reason there's evil, metaphysically speaking, because you might ask yourself, well, why would God make a world that's characterized by evil? And the answer is, well, maybe evil can exist as a possibility, but not a reality. It could, if we did things right, evil could exist as a possibility and not a reality. I guess I'm hoping that perhaps that you Catholic types stop being so apologetic for your virtues. One of the things that the radicals are really good at is weaponizing guilt. And good people have a proclivity for guilt, because if someone accuses you of something, especially if multiple people accuse you, and you're a well-socialized person, a conscientious person, you're going to tear yourself into pieces pretty hard trying to figure out if they've got a point. And that's fine, fair enough. But it makes you vulnerable to another satanic synonym is the accuser.
Yes.
Right. This question is, well, how susceptible should you be to accusations? And that's a tough one because, like I said, if you're a good person, it's pretty easy to feel guilty. But the problem with that is your guilt can be weaponized. And that's definitely happening. So all of you people with your privilege. So, I guess I'd part with that thought. I think part of the reason that there's an injunction, a religious injunction to atone is to come to terms with your privilege so that it can't be weaponized. Maybe. It's more complicated than that, but it's a good start. It's like there are all sorts of advantages you have that other people don't have. And no doubt disadvantages as well, right, that are unique to you. But let's stick with the advantages. It's like, well, what makes you deserving of those advantages? And it can't really be historical happenstance. You happen to be born American, which is relatively good fortune, because you can really not attribute that to you. You don't deserve that in any sense. So how do you justify it? And I think the answer is by leading an ethical life. Like, that's actually the answer. It's not like you should lead an ethical life. You should. That's not the issue. The issue is that's how you atone for your unearned privilege. And the advantage to that is your guilt can't be weaponized under those conditions, not by other people, which is very important at the moment, but also by you. It's like you think, well, I've got these advantages. Well, what am I doing about them? I'm doing the best I can with them, right? That's how I justify them, is I try to treat them as gifts and I try to make the most out of them in a way that's maximally beneficial for me and for everybody else simultaneously. I'm actually trying to do that. It's like, well, who could ask for more than that? And I think that's one weapon in the culture war. It's like, if you're living an ethical life, if you're doing your best, well, maybe you can stop apologizing for your privilege. And maybe that would take one weapon away from the people who want to burn everything down, because they definitely want to burn everything down.